we're live. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fridays with Sue and Steph. And today we are so excited to have Dr. Suzanne Schneps with us. Really one of our very favorite psychologists, mostly because there's usually a few tears in something that moves us. And also it's the wisdom is it's just for us. It's given to us. We can apply it. We don't feel like it's, on a level that we could never aspire to. So we're here today with Dr. Suzanne Schneps to talk about how do we, as parents, navigate right this second when our kids just went to college. And now there are some obvious things going on as they transition, which you could probably guess what's going on right now, Suzanne, right? Like what
I
is
guess.
okay, so
Yes.
tell us roughly, how are kids feeling right now in college? They've been there a few weeks.
Okay, there's been a pattern, and I think we need to talk about the fact that in all the years I've seen kids go to college, I'm trying to get myself on the screen.
I know. Let me see if I can change the
all the years I've seen kids go to college, this year is the most unique, much even different than last year. A couple of weeks ago, I think almost all of them were off the rails. I mean, one day I got 7 phone calls, which from kids that just went off to college. I didn't send that many kids that I know off to college. This week they're starting to pull back, but we have new things, rush and those kinds of experiences. I think that we need to take into account that last year was uniquely different for many of them, and their academic expectations were definitely different. The amount of work they had was definitely different, and their social interactions also varied. So it's a bit more challenging. But, you go to college to figure some of this out.
Well, tell us why did we send our kids to college? You have wisdom to impart to us that we may have lost sight of.
I'm not sure that what I'm going to say is that popular. Okay.
It doesn't have to be popular. It just has to be wisdom.
Well, okay. Sure, we want them to get an education, but I really think you go to college to grow up. Okay. You go to college to be able to figure out the first steps, because we do know that adolescence goes to 25 now, for some 30. You go to college to start to begin to figure out who you are, to begin to individuate, a very key word from your parents, which means you start to be your own person. You might try on a few things for size. Some of them might not be so great, and some of them might be just fine. But that's why you go to college.
All right. You want to swap, Steph?
Sure. So, okay. So
these are questions from that we asked our people from our Facebook group if they have questions for you. So the first 4 are questions from our parents.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take, so you just talked about this new environment, right? That they're all in. And how do you know if your kid is, spiraling from the stress of a new environment, or, and being away from home, so this one, it was a 19-year-old son who is not responding to phone calls or texts.
Okay. So first of all, I believe, after having had one of the world's worst experiences with a kid that I worked with, it's really important to get a contact information of somebody else at school. It's essential. Okay, because, when they go MIA, most of the time it means they're fine. Most of the time it means they could care less about you. But you, in the meantime, are getting to be a wreck because you haven't heard from them. It's mostly a good sign when you don't hear from them, because when they're in trouble or when they're a wreck, they love to call you. They love to text you, because then it could be your problem and not theirs. That being said, I don't know who we're talking about. Okay. So if it's a kid that is historically worrisome and we're really worried about major, not typical, but major levels of depression, you need to reach out to somebody to find out the person is okay.
Who's your best guess at who should we look to?
Okay, I'm a fan of being able to have a way to contact the kid's roommate or somebody in the hall. Just it's annoying to the kid, but if they're not responding after a while, you've basically laid out, you know what? You don't respond, guess what? This is going to happen. I mean, we need to know you're alive. We're not asking for a lengthy dissertation here. If you don't have that and they're a freshman, most of them have an RA that you can touch base with and just say, probably everything's fine. I just want a heads up that it's fine. And they're going to, want to wring my neck that I did this.
So what I love is that we tend to be an all or nothing in our society. So it's like, don't be overbearing and don't do everything for your kid could be interpreted as don't do anything and don't be overbearing. But then our biggest fear is always like, what if? So you're saying it's okay, like have some, even if it's just for the parents' peace of mind, have some way to get confirmation that everything's okay. So I love that.
And you can lay it out like, we need to hear from you. I'm not an exacting person here. Approximately every week, and just a text that says everything's okay. We'd love to chat with you. We would actually love every detail about what you're doing.
Okay, so
please fill out this form.
All right, so this came in from a parent who said, and so this is about homesickness. And I want to say that social media gives us the sense that every kid is having a blast in college. And if your kid is sad and homesick, it can feel way bigger than just homesickness, because the perception, I don't even have that worry. And the perception when I'm on social media is that everybody's having a great time. So the question is, when does the homesickness end? And if they're still struggling in second semester, is that a sign that a change may be needed?
Okay, first of all, homesickness comes and goes. Okay, it depends on so many variables. One, it depends on the individual teen. They themselves may struggle with separation. Two, depends what's going on at home. And thirdly, when things aren't good at school, you're homesick. Okay, so the greater question is, what are they doing about it? How intense is it? Pieces of homesickness you might take from one place to another, okay? And that the solution is not a different option. But sometimes you didn't pick the right place. It's not for you. It's not working out. This is really okay. It's okay. And I think you raise it. You say you seem unhappy. You seem like this doesn't work for you. Do you want to think about something else? It's fine. It's not the end of the world.
I love that. Okay, here's the next one from one of our parents. Worried about the Delta variant, and they have a freshman attending college in a red state with no mask mandates. He and the roommate are vaccinated, and the mom feels like he's a ticking time bomb. So not even if, but when, and she's terrified. And the students have to leave campus for 10 days after a positive test, and the college is providing no virtual learning for sick kids. Ugh. How do we get her some peace and... it's a real, right? It's a real fear. She's so not alone.
I must say, I feel for her.
Yeah.
And here's the good news. She said both of her child and the roommate are vaccinated. Because we have heard from those where that is not the combination, and that raises a whole separate set of stories. I think that there's two different pieces. There's the fact that how are they going to get educated if they're really not feeling okay? And though there's no virtual learning, my guess is that if they contact every professor, they're going to help them. And there might be the one lousy professor who doesn't. And I think the words that are coming to mind are shame on them. But, it's like they should be able to get the work. And the other part is while they are in some hotel or something, which is what many of them wind up doing, that's when they really need mommy and daddy. They need a little contact. They need a little TLC. It's very isolating. It's very, very hard.
It's interesting. I'm going to add a little color. So I have a college freshman who did not have COVID, but had to miss a whole week. She was sick with something else. And the professors have been asked to be more accommodating this year, but she was very worried about it. And it's hard to sit on the sidelines and watch that, but just cheer them on. It's going to be okay. You got to take care of yourself first. So I was right there. I can so relate to this mom.
It's really hard. And most people are human beings,
Yes.
and they're going to be there and be supportive, and the colleges recognize that this is really, really problematic.
For sure. For sure.
Okay, so the next question is one that has nothing to do with COVID or, the unusual circumstances that the kids are finding themselves in. This is a kid who's on the spectrum, and he has a terrible time with time management. But if you ask him, he says he's got it, like, back off, I've got it. But then he freaks out.
Well, he went to college to be independent. So first of all, I'm going to guess that he has some kind of accommodation. And I'm going to guess that he might not be using it because, they don't. You work really hard as parents to get them all these accommodations, which you should do. And then they go and they say, I don't need them. I can do it myself. And it's a lot of self-talk that you've sent them to college to begin to recognize what do they need to be able to be successful human beings. And it's really, it's really hard to watch them not do what they need to do, but it's still a safety net of life. They're 18, 19 years old. And, if they wind up on probation, hopefully it's a message of what they need to do, but doesn't mean their life is over. It means that they have to take this in. They went to college to learn how to access the tools that they need to be able to manage their time.
That is so
how about advice for the mom who has to sit back with her own fear and worry? Like, we know that a lot of this is about ourselves, but it doesn't offer a solution. Like, what does she do about this story?
Well, one, I think she should busy herself, because I think distraction is a wonderful tool to not be thinking 24/7 about your children. When they go to college, you think about them all the time. They think you don't, okay? But you do. And if there's a problem, it gets magnified in your own head. And it's a lot of self-talk and distraction to really think through how. It's really hard to do this, by the way. I wouldn't say that I always got an A+ at it myself. Like that in the scheme of life, it's going to be okay. But it's distracting yourself and getting yourself busy so that you're not thinking about it all the time.
So good.
and the other piece is to find some good friends that you can talk to and say, because that, is, you need the support, because it's really hard.
Yeah, that is well said. Sue distracted herself with starting your teen. It was a really big distraction. Our 14-year distraction. So there's so many, as you know, the parents groups on all the colleges, right? On Facebook, the universities, right? All the groups. So these are, prevalent at all the colleges. They've got, moderators, etc. So we're going to read a few that are in that we've collected from the group. So just to give, if people haven't seen them, does anyone know if as a parent we can check our students' grades? Anyone have a kid who surfs? My son is looking for buddies to surf with and isn't sure how to find other surfers. I love this one. How or where are students getting water for their water bottles? These are all real. Parents called the helpline because the bus line wasn't working. Parents trying to help kids make friends. We could go on and on, right? We could fill up the days, right? We could go till the end of the year. They are a cross between hilarious and completely worrisome, right? Where can my kid go apple picking, right? My kid is missing their friends. But, they're a nuisance. It's hard to stay away. I always say they're like a train wreck. I can't help myself because really, frankly, I can tell you, like, every 20th post, I get a great piece of information. Now I've got to sift through them to get that piece of information and be pretty in control and in good headspace to manage it. But why is it bad for our kids? Why? Tell us why, like, just having these outlets, like, bad thing, and why?
Okay, I think you have to take these with a grain of salt. Okay. Um, some of them are trying to continue to micromanage their kid. Some of them are the fact that their kid said, "Find this out. I can't do this." So they're trying to find out the answer to it. But I think we tell our kids that Facebook and all their social media, because most of them don't do forms of Facebook, are not real. Okay, that it is a persona that's put out there. You've given the speech 50,000 times. The problem is we're not letting ourselves take it in. That's the same for for us. And why are they asking these questions? Who knows what's going on at the middle? The middle of the moment. Where do I get water to fill up my water bottle? I don't know. There might be missing information. I mean, the pipes, I don't know, backed up, blah, 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 blah. And there's a water shortage of regular, whatever you call those waters you buy. Who knows? Okay. We could be missing information. So when you said, Steph, that you sort through them. And there is a kernel and you do get some information, but remember what you've told your kids.
Yeah, that's good.
Also, I think the lesson for me in what you're saying, Suzanne, is that it is not parenting gone bad, that these parents have a place to go to kind of bond with other parents living through the same experience. And I imagine by second semester, it starts to wane. And then, if you're a senior parent and you're still doing this, that's probably a little more concerning. But everyone's transitioning. So I love that. I love pivoting on that perspective. And that takes me to the next. Oh, you want to add something?
Well, it does give you information, and it's, makes you feel good. I'm not worried about those three things, maybe this one, but there's things that I'm doing okay, because it's hard to be a parent of a kid off to college. You're not getting it. You sent them to preschool and you thought that was hard because you didn't get to know as much. And then you sent them to kindergarten and you knew even less. And now you're sending them to college and you hardly know anything.
Yeah, that was the worst. Feeling like I not only wanted to know, but that I had a right to know. And it turns out just not to be true. They are their own people. So I'm going to transition to the next question, which is at the core of all of this. We just want to know that our kids are okay. And this lessening of information, it takes us right, like you can catastrophize not hearing from your kid. You can catastrophize that my kid can't make new friends, that they're still crying. So we have to learn how to live with not knowing, but also balancing it with what you suggested, having some place we can go to actually get a check-in. So how do we do this? It's such growing pains for us as parents.
I think you realize it's growing pains for you, but it's growing pains for them. And first of all, they still do exactly what they did when they were little. They dump on you when they're unhappy. Okay. And, they can call and, be unhappy and then they're done with it. And then they went out with somebody and had a great time and, met really cool kids and did something that was really, right up their alley. But they just don't tell you that,
Close the circle, kids. Close the circle.
Exactly. Mom who?
But they're not going to, Sue. That's not their job. Okay. They're also going to do things that they think, I don't know how mom and dad would sort of feel about this. Okay. They're going to, test some waters. And they need to. That's part of their job right now. Okay. And your job is to try to let them be able to do that. And I think the piece that every parent forgets is you're still their safety net. You're still where they're going to come if things really are hard and really are a problem. And they're going to tell you that they need you.
It's so interesting, Suzanne. And I think maybe some of this is a little bit of a conversation Sue and I had that on our podcast that'll drop in a couple weeks with Dr. G, and some of it is some of the things you said that I'm piecing together right now. And the distinction between uncomfortable and worry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an interesting one. And I think that there is so much space where we are uncomfortable, but are we worried? And I think that's, again, like you said, like with the kids, we are their safety nets. And, maybe sometimes I'm just like filtering things through my head right now, and I have to give it some more thought, but I'm thinking, yeah, there's so many times where I'm just uncomfortable, but am I really worried? Probably not. Just uncomfortable.
And sometimes you might even be worried, but you know they have a big exam, and you're going, oh, but they didn't really study. They actually told me that they went out, and I'm going to I'm worried they're going to fail the exam. Well, it's really should be their worry, but because we're parents, we worry too.
Yeah, it's so hard. Okay, so leave us with something hopeful for for all of us that have college kids.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna leave you with. So when I was a college freshman, my sister would want me to tell you that I called home every night. That is not true. I only called home maybe once, sometimes twice. We have a slight difference of opinion. And I would cry every single time, which was true. And my parents would be incredibly worried until they sent me the magic letter of, if you're not so happy, why don't you come home and go to school? But the end story is, I loved college. It just took me longer to be content, to find the right roommate, to make it all work. And it's a process, and college is a process. So you need to remember, it takes time till they find their place, they find their people, they find the activities, and they find how to make it work for them.
Beautiful.
Dr. Suzanne Schneps, always amazing to have you on. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, everybody, thanks for being here with us, and have a great week.
Bye-bye.